the hereditary prince, a man devoted to the king, his unique companion and loyal servant. Administrator of the royal domains and the king's representative among the Bedouins. One truly known and beloved by the sovereign. Thus speaks the servant. Sinuhe, I was a loyal follower of my master, serving within the royal harem of the hereditary princess, the king's most cherished wife, the royal consort of Senusret in Kumisat, and daughter of King Amenhot in Kainfer, the noble lady Nofret, a woman of unwavering loyalty. In year XXX, during the 3rd month of Iaku, on the 7th day, the god departed into his horizon. King Siatepeber had ascended to the heavens, merging with the solar disk, his divine limbs returning to their creator. The palace fell silent. Grief overwhelmed every heart. The great double gate was sealed. Courtiers crouched with heads bowed to their knees, and the people mourned deeply at that time. His Majesty had dispatched a great army to the land of the Timihu, led by his eldest son, the noble god Senusret. He had been sent to subdue foreign lands and bring the Gehennu into captivity. He now returned, bringing with him prisoners from among the Timihu, along with countless herds of cattle. The royal court sent word to the western lands to inform the king's son of what had taken place. In the palace, the messengers reached him along the way, arriving at night. Without delay, like a falcon in flight, he took off with his attendants, keeping the news from his army. Orders were given that the royal sons among the troops say nothing. I was there. I heard his voice as he spoke. When I departed, my heart was broken, my arms weakened. Fear gripped every part of me. I slipped away, twisting and turning to find a hiding place. I crawled between bushes to escape the road and headed south. But I dared not return to the palace, fearing war had already begun, without even offering a blessing for the court. I crossed the Canal Maudi at the place known as the Sycamore. I reached the island of Sinuhe and spent the day resting in a field. At dawn, I resumed my journey. Along the way, a man standing by the roadside begged me for mercy. He was terrified. Near sunset, I approached the town of Nagu, using a punt without a rudder. I crossed the water with the help of the west wind and arrived on the eastern side, in the region of the quarries, at a place called Harawit Nabit Dudoshir. I continued northward on foot and came to the wall of the prince, built to hold back the Asiatics and crush the no Miu-Shah-Iu. Fearing the watchman posted on the wall during the day, I crouched, hidden in a bush. I moved again at night, and by sunrise, I reached Thutîyi and rested at the island of Kamwari. Then thirst overtook me. I collapsed, my throat rasping. I thought, this is what death tastes like. But I gathered my strength and willed myself to rise, for I heard the loud cries of a herd. The Bedouins had seen me. One of their chiefs, who had previously stayed in Egypt, recognized me. He gave me water, had milk boiled for me, and took me in. I traveled with him and his tribe, and he helped me cross from one land to another. I set out for Swanu and eventually arrived at Kadame, where I stayed for a year and a half. Amuanashi, the prince of Upper Tanu, summoned me and said, "You seem content here because you hear talk of Egypt." He spoke this way because he knew who I was. He had heard of my reputation and abilities from some Egyptians living in the region who had spoken of me. Then he asked, "Why have you come here? What's the reason? Is it perhaps because of the mysterious journey that took place in the palace of the king of the two lands, Sihotepeber, the details of which remain unknown?" I replied with careful words, "Yes, truly." When I returned from the campaign in the land of the Timihu, I heard something that shook me deeply. My heart was no longer in my chest. It pulled me away into the desert. Yet I had not been accused, no one had insulted me, no disgrace had befallen me, and my name was not spoken in any public proclamation. I don't know what pushed me to flee. To this land it felt as though it were the will of the gods. He then asked, "What will become of Egypt now?" Without the gracious God whose fear once kept foreign nations in check, like a pestilence sweeping through the year, I shared my thoughts with him and answered, "May the gods protect us." His son has entered the palace and taken up his father's legacy. He is a god without equal, one who stands above all. Wise and shrewd, his commands guide the comings and goings of the people. Even while his father stayed within the palace, he had already subdued foreign lands. Carrying out the plans he had been entrusted with, He is a mighty warrior who labors with the sword, unmatched in strength. When he charges into battle against the foreigners, there is no one like him. Like a bull with powerful horns, he scatters his enemies and breaks their formation. None can stand before him. He is the Punisher who crushes skulls. He races faster than the fleeing, and those who try to escape him find no shelter. His heart is unshaken in battle. He never retreats, always returning to the fight. He is strong. In spirit, crowds do not exhaust him. He is fearless, always pushing forward when challenged. He finds joy in striking down his foes. With shield in hand, he topples enemies. He does not need to strike twice, for his first blow is final. No one can parry his spear or bend his bow. The barbarians flee before him, for his arms are as powerful as the breath of a great goddess. In battle, he never stops, never hesitates, and leaves nothing unfinished. He is beloved and deeply cherished. His people love him more than themselves, more than their own gods. Men and women celebrate him joyfully. He has ruled since birth, wearing crowns from the cradle. He has caused his generation to flourish. He is a gift from the gods, and Egypt is joyful under his rule. He expands the borders of the realm, conquering the south without concern for the north. He was born to defeat the Asiatics and crush the Nomushawi. If he ever sends an expedition, here, may he hear your name spoken with respect, and may no ill report of you reach his ears, for he never stops doing good for the lands that willingly submit to him. The chief of the Tonu responded, "Truly, Egypt is fortunate to have a prince of such strength. As for you, now that you are here, remain with me, and I will treat you well." He placed me among his own children, gave me his eldest daughter in marriage, and allowed me to choose for myself the finest things from his land, particularly from a fertile region near the border called Aya. It was a rich and plentiful place. There were figs and grapes, and wine was more abundant than water. Honey was plentiful, oil was in abundance, and the trees bore all kinds of fruit. There was no shortage of barley or wheat, and livestock of every kind thrived there. He honored me further when he came personally to install me as the chief over one of the best tribes in his land. From that time on, I lived in abundancy, had fresh bread every day, wine daily, cooked meat, poultry ready for roasting, and wild game, which was hunted for me and brought to me, alongside whatever my own hunting dogs caught. Cakes were baked in large numbers for me, and milk was prepared in every possible way. I spent many years there, and my children grew strong, each becoming leaders of their own tribes. Messengers traveling north or returning south to Egypt often stayed at my home. I welcomed everyone. I gave water to the thirsty, guided lost travelers back to their paths, and helped those who had been robbed. When Bedouins defied the local rulers, I led the campaigns against them. The Prince of Tonu appointed me as the commander of his army for many years. Whenever I led raids into foreign territories, fear spread before me, especially in the grazing lands near the water sources. I seized their cattle, captured their dependents, and took their slaves. I killed their warriors by my sword, my bow, my swift marches, and my carefully crafted strategies. I earned the trust and admiration of my prince. Once he saw my strength and bravery, he grew to love me and treated me as one of his own sons. He made me chief among his children, recognizing the power in my arms and the loyalty in my heart. A mighty warrior from Tonu came to challenge me in my own tent. He was a renowned hero, unmatched in strength. Having already defeated all of Tonu, he declared openly that he would fight me, take my possessions, and steal my cattle. Urged on by the men of his tribe, the local prince consulted with me, and I replied, "I don't know this man. I've never been his friend, never entered his tent, or crossed into his territory. He's simply jealous because I succeed in what I do. May the gods protect Usaim like a bull surrounded by his cows when an outsider bull comes to claim them. Should someone who once begged for mercy now rise as a master? No nomad freely aligns himself with a peasant from the delta. Can a marshland grow atop a mountain? Does he really seek battle? Is he truly a warrior who delights in fighting his equal blow for blow? If he has the courage, let him say so plainly. But is fate hidden from the gods? If it is truly destined, how can it remain unknown?" That night, I prepared myself, tightening my bow, practicing with my dagger, readying all my weapons. At dawn, the people of Tonu gathered. Their tribes assembled, and neighboring lands came to witness the duel they had long anticipated. When the warrior arrived, I rose to face him. I stood my ground. The people watched with burning hearts. Cries rang out from men and women alike. Full of anxiety, they asked, "Is there truly another man strong enough to face him?" He took up his shield, spear, and a bundle of javelins. But I made him waste his weapons, dodging his attacks so that every throw struck only the earth. None came near me. Then he charged. I drew my bow and loosed a single arrow that sank into his neck. He let out a cry and collapsed face first on the ground. I finished him with his own battle-axe, raised my cry of triumph standing over him, and all the A's around me rejoiced. I gave thanks to Montu, the war god, while his people mourned him. Prince Emuanashi embraced me in celebration, and so I claimed the spoils of the defeated. I took his cattle, doing to him exactly what he had planned for me. I seized everything in his tent, plundered his camp, and enriched myself, expanding both my wealth and my herds. Thus the god showed favor to the one who had once been scorned for fleeing to a foreign land, and who now rejoiced with a grateful heart. I, who had once fled as a fugitive, now had my name spoken with praise in the court of Egypt. I, who had once wandered in desperation and hunger, now gave bread to my neighbors. I, who had left my homeland with nothing but the clothes on my back, now wore fine linen and rich garments. I, who had once carried out my own errands because I had no one else, now commanded many servants. My house was splendid, my estate was vast, and I was remembered in the royal palace. Oh, all you gods who ordained that I should flee, look kindly upon me now. Let me return to the palace. Let me once again behold the place where my heart truly belongs. What joy it would be if my body could one day be laid to rest in the land where I was born. May my good fortune continue. May the God grant me peace. May he show mercy to the one he once afflicted, and compassion to the one he forced into exile. Is he not now satisfied? May he listen to the one who prays from afar, and look kindly upon the man he cast down and removed from his homeland. May the king of Egypt show me favor. May I live by his generosity. May I be entrusted once again with the stewardship of the lady of the land's household, and hear the messages of her children. Oh, let my body feel youth again. But now, old age has come, weakness overtakes me. My eyes grow heavy, my arms fall limp, my legs falter. Death draws near, and soon I will journey to the eternal cities to follow the Lady of all. May she speak to me of the beauty of her children, and may she spend eternity by my side. And so, when word of my situation reached His Majesty, King Korea, true of voice, he graciously sent a royal messenger bearing gift to gladden the heart of this humble servant who now speaks to you. These were the same kinds of gifts given to the rulers of foreign lands. Even the royal children in the palace sent their greetings and messages to me. Copy of the royal decree delivered to the servant present regarding his recall to Egypt. Horus, bringer of life, lord of the diadems of the north and south, bringer of life, king of Upper and Lower Egypt. Korea, son of the sun, Amenhat, living forever and ever. This is the command of the king to the servant Sinuhe. Behold, this decree is delivered to inform you of His Majesty's will. You have journeyed through foreign lands, from Kedema to Tanu, traveling from one region to another, guided only by the inclinations of your own heart. And what have you truly gained from it? Your words no longer carry weight. You can no longer speak with influence among the elders. Your counsel is ignored. Yet, let it be known, this path you chose was not the result of any ill will from me. That queen, your sky, your heaven still flourishes in the palace. Her dignity stands tall among the royalty of the land, and her children remain secure within the private quarters of the court. You will share in the wealth they bestow, and you shall live in comfort from their generosity. When you return to Egypt and see once again the home you left behind, bow low, face to the ground, before the great gateway. Rejoin the circle of the king's friends, for now you have grown old, your strength fades, and thoughts turn to burial and the journey to eternal peace. The nights of sacred embalming, the anointing oils and linen wrappings, will be attended to by the hands of the goddess Teot. Your funeral procession will be grand, a golden coffin with a blue-painted face, a canopy above your body drawn by oxen on a sacred chariot. Singers will go before you, dancers will perform to the sound of flutes, offerings will be recited at your funerary tables, Sacrifices will be made before your steely. Your pyramid will be built from polished white stone, placed among the tombs of the royal children. You shall not die in a foreign land. You will not be carried to the grave by Asiatics. You will not be buried, wrapped in a sheepskin. Instead, when you return, your body will be honored, and you will be granted peace in compensation for all the hardships you have endured. When this command reached me, I was among my people. As soon as I read it, I threw myself to the ground, covered my head with dust, and crawled in the dirt. I circled my camp in joy, crying out, "How has such a thing been done for me, the servant whose heart once led him into wild foreign lands? How beautiful is this mercy that rescues me from death! For through your divine spirit I am allowed to end my days once more at the royal court." Copy of acknowledgement of the receipt of the royal command, the servant of the harem. Sinuhe speaks. In peace, greater than all else. That flight I took in ignorance, your divine spirit knows the truth of it. O good God, Lord of the two lands, beloved of Ra, favored by Montu, Lord of Thebes, May Amen, Lord of Karnak, Sokar, Ra, Horus, Hathor, Adam, and the Ennead of the gods, Saptu, god of the noble spirits, Horus of the eastern desert, the royal Urius that crowns your brow, the gods who rule over the Nile's flooding, Minhorus, who dwells in foreign lands, Weret, lady of Punt, Nut, Harawasra, and all the gods, lords of Egypt and the islands of the great green sea, grant life and strength to your breath. May they shower you with their gifts. May they grant you endless time and immeasurable eternity, so that all lands, mountain and plain alike, continue to tremble before your power, and you may rule over all the lands beneath the sun's circuit. This is the prayer offered by your servant, he whom you have rescued from death. The Lord of wisdom, who knows all men, knew what was in the heart of his majesty, even when I, your servant, could not speak it aloud, for it was a matter too heavy to utter. But the great God, the image of Ra, makes wise those who act with purpose. And I, your servant, submit to the one who plans my destiny and obey his commands. For your majesty is Horus himself, and your strength reaches across all nations. Now I beg your majesty to summon Maki of Kadima, Kinshush of Kantikushu, and menus of the two conquered lands, princes of unblemished reputation, who love you dearly and have never given cause for rebuke. Tonu is yours, as are your loyal hounds. As for the flight your servant took, I did not intend it. I did not act knowingly. It was not my plan, and I do not even know what compelled me to leave the place where I stood. It was as though I were dreaming, as if a man from Uthu suddenly found himself in Yebu, or a man of the marshlands awoke in the deserts of Nubia. I was not pursued. I heard no threats. My name was never spoken by a herald. And yet my body trembled. My limbs moved against my will. My heart urged me, and a divine force drew me to flee, for I am not one who resists his fate. And even a man who knows his homeland well may be struck by fear. But now Ra has granted that your fear rule over Egypt, and that your dread falls upon all foreign lands. As for me, whether I dwell in your palace or far from it is you who can dim my sky. The sun rises only at your command. The river's water flows only as you allow. The breeze I breathe is granted only at your pleasure. I, your servant, now leave behind the duties I held in this land. May your majesty act according to your will. For life itself comes from the air you bestow. It is the love of Ra, of Horus, and of Hathor that refreshes your breath. And it is the eternal gift of Montu, Lord of Thebes, that brings everlasting life. When they came to bring me back, the servant, now speaking, held a festival day in Aya to pass on my belongings to my children. My eldest son was appointed leader of the tribe, inheriting all that I owned, my household servants, livestock, farmlands, and date palm groves. Then I began my journey southward. When the first reached Haruhuhoru, the general stationed there with the border guards sent word to the royal court. His Majesty responded by sending a high-ranking overseer from the royal estate, accompanied by cargo boats loaded with gifts from the king for the Bedouin who had traveled with me to Haruhuhoru. I said farewell to each of them by name, since servants of all kinds were present, each performing their assigned duties. I set sail. Bread was baked and beer was brewed for me all the way until I arrived at the royal capital. Thaitu-taui. At dawn the next day, as the land brightened, messengers came to summon me. 10 men arrived, and another 10 returned to escort me to the palace. I bowed to the ground before the sphinxes. Into the throne room guided me to the audience hall of the king. There I saw His Majesty seated upon the great elevated throne in the silver-gilt alcove. I fell flat on my stomach before him and lost all awareness in his presence. The God King addressed me kindly, but I felt overwhelmed, as if seized by twilight. My spirit failed me, my limbs collapsed, and my heart felt empty within my understood in that moment the gulf between life and death. His Majesty turned to one of the courtiers and said, "Help him rise, and let him speak to me." Then the king said, "So you have returned after fleeing and living in foreign lands. Old age has come upon you. It is no small mercy that your body may now find rest in Egypt, not buried by foreigners. Do not hold your tongue again when I ask you something." I was afraid of being punished, and answered like a man shaken by fear. "What has my lord said?" To me, I answered this: "It was not my will. It was the hand of the God." The fear that now lives in my chest, this I believe, led me to flee. And here I am before you. You are life itself. May your Majesty do as you see fit. The royal children were brought in to appear before the king, and His Majesty said to the queen, "Here is Sinuhe, returned at last, looking like a true Asiatic, a Bedouin through and through." She burst out laughing, and the royal children shouted in unison. They protested before His Majesty, saying, "No, that's not true, O sovereign, our lord." Then they took up their instruments there, castanets, scepters, and sisterans said to His Majesty, "Lay your hands upon the worthy, O long-lived king, for they are the jewels of the Lady of Heaven. The golden goddess breathes life into your nostrils. The Lady of the Stars embraces you. The southern crown sails down river, the northern crown sails up. You have driven away harm from your people. For Ra favors you, O Lord of the two lands. Just as the mistress of all is praised, so are you. Draw your bow, release your arrowlet. The oppressed find breath again. Grant us this one favor, we ask on behalf of this Sheikh Sinuhe, the Bedouin born in Tumori. If he fled and left Egypt behind, it was because he feared you. What face does not pale when it sees yours? What eye does not tremble before you?" His Majesty responded. "Let him fear no more, nor cry out in dread. He shall become a friend among the royal counselors and be placed among those within the royal circle. Now take him to the royal wardrobe so he may be given what he is due." And together we walked straight to the grand double gate. I was granted the house of a royal son, complete with wealth, a bath chamber, celestial decorations, and furniture brought from the double White House. I received garments from the royal wardrobe and exquisite perfumes. Filled every room reserved for the king and his nobles. Servants of every kind were assigned to their duties, renewed in body and spirit. Of the nomads, I dressed in fine linen, anointed myself with delicate oils, and slept in a proper bed. I abandoned the desert sands to those who lived there, and left the tree oils to those who used them in the wilderness. I was given a home befitting a landed gentleman, the kind of estate granted to those called friends of the king. Many brickmakers worked to build it. Food was brought to me from the palace 3 or 4 times each day, along with constant gifts from the royal children. A stone pyramid was constructed for me among the royal tombs. The chief stonemason marked out its foundation, the head draftsman designed the decorations, and the chief sculptor carved its form. The overseers of the necropolis traveled across Egypt to fulfill the task. Storehouses were stocked with all necessary furnishings for my spirit, and I planted a garden for my tomb in front of its own settlement. I supplied furnishings and made careful arrangements within the pyramid. I also donated land and established a funerary estate. Gold, wearing a kilt of electromand, it was His Majesty himself who ordered it to be made. Such honors are not granted to ordinary men. I remained in the king's favor until the end of my days. The papyrus containing this story is held by the Imperial Egyptian Museum at the Hermitage in St. Petersburg. It was discovered in 1880 by W. Golenischeff, who introduced it to scholars. Attending the 5th International Congress of Orientalists in Berlin in 1881, although he did not initially publish the original text, he later released a French translation titled Sur un ancien conte égyptien, which was presented at the Congress. This translation appeared in the Proceedings of the Fifth International Congress of Orientalists, Berlin, 1882, Part 2. It also formed the foundation for a Russian translation by Wladimir Stezo, titled An Egyptian Tale Discovered at the Hermitage of St. Petersburg, published in the journal Westnik Jurapy in 1882. English translations followed, one by Griffith. Included in W. Flinders Petrie's Egyptian Tales, 1895, London, and another in Griffith's Contribution to Egyptian Literature, found in specimen pages of a Library of the World's Best Literature, 1898. New York later Golanestev included a translation in his Catalogue of the Hermitage Museum, 1891, St. Petersburg, and a Portuguese version with textual commentary was produced by Francisco Maria Esteves Pereira, titled O Naufrago Conte Egipcio, published in O Instituto, Volume 4, 8. Eventually, Golenishev published a complete hieratic transcription of the text with a French translation and commentary in Recueil des Travaux, 1906, which also appeared as a standalone volume. In 1911, he released a critical edition in hieroglyphs, including an introduction and glossary, under the title Le Conte du Naufrage. On Golenishev's version, supplemented by photographs of the original manuscript, Adolf Erman produced both a hieroglyphic transcription and a German translation of the story. A separate German translation was also published by a Wiedemann in his collection of ancient Egyptian legends. Several scholars have examined difficult passages within the text and proposed ideas about the story's origins. Among them are Kurt Sethi and Alan H. Gardner, each offering their own interpretations in various academic studies. The exact origin of the manuscript remains a mystery. No one knows where it was found, how it came to be in Russia, or when it was added to the Hermitage Museum's collection. It wasn't unrolled until 1880, and if not for the curiosity and dedication of Golenishev, before the 18th dynasty, the document is made up of 189 vertical columns and horizontal lines of text. Remarkably, the manuscript is complete from start to finish, with nearly every word preserved. The language is fluent and elegantly written, and the script is carefully formed. Only rarely does one encounter a term that is unclear or a grammatical structure that is difficult to interpret. Of the 19th dynasty, the author structured this tale in the form of a report, princes, and elsewhere. In the story, one of the expedition's subordinates, possibly the narrator himself, purports to his master that the ship has safely returned to Egypt. Because the original ship was lost during the expedition, the master rescued by the vessel that brought him back would likely be questioned in detail, and possibly held accountable if any major error was uncovered. Much like a naval officer, facing a court-martial today, he risked being blamed for the disaster. To comfort him, the narrator recounts how he once faced a similar situation but managed to turn it to his advantage. Sethi believed the story takes place in Elephantine, suggesting that the royal court was located there at the time. This idea led Gardner to wonder whether the story might be a surviving piece from a broader tradition of tales originating in Elephantine. The wise servant spoke, "May your heart be at ease, my lord, for we have arrived home. The mooring stake has been hammered in, the rope secured to the shore, the welcoming cry has been raised, and the god has been praised. Each man embraces his companion, and together we shout, 'Well arrived!' Not one of our soldiers is missing. Even though we traveled to the very edge of the land of Wahe, we passed through Sanmut, and now see we have returned safely and reached our homeland once more. Listen to me, my prince, for I speak without exaggeration. Wash yourself, rinse your hands, and prepare to respond when called upon. Speak to the king with sincerity. Do not let nervousness shake your resolve. For while a man's words can save him, careless speech can bring shame. Let your heart guide you, and speak only words of peace. Now, allow me to tell you of a similar experience. I had journeyed to the mines on behalf of the sovereign, and sailed across the sea aboard a vessel 150 cubits in length and 40 cubits wide. Aboard were 500 of Egypt's finest sailors-men, who had seen the sky and earth, and who were braver than lions. They believed no winds would rise, no trouble would come. But while we were still far from land, a storm struck. The wind howled, the waves surged, and one towering wave rose 8 cubits high. I grabbed a plank, The ship was destroyed, and no one else survived. I was cast ashore on an island by the sea's mercy. I spent 3 days entirely alone, with only my own thoughts for company. At night, I slept curled within the hollow of a tree, taking refuge in its shade. By day, I stretched out my limbs and searched for food. I found figs and grapes, splendid leeks, berries and seeds, melons in abundance, fish and birds, everything one could hope for. I ate my fill and left the excess upon the ground, more than my hands could carry. I fashioned a fire striker, lit a flame, and made a burnt offering to the gods. Suddenly, I heard a sound like thunder, and I thought it was the crashing of a mighty wave. The trees groaned, and the ground shook. I uncovered my face, and then I saw it, a serpent, 30 cubits long, with a tail stretching 2 cubits behind it. Its body shimmered with gold, and its eyebrows were made of true lapis lazuli. It was even more splendid when seen from the side than from the front. The serpent opened its mouth toward me. I lay flat on my stomach before it as it spoke. "Who has brought you here? Who has brought you, servant? Who has brought you? If you delay in telling me how you came to this island, I will show you what it means to be turned to ashes and vanish without a trace." I replied, "You speak to me, but I cannot hear you. I am overwhelmed and senseless before you." Then the serpent gently picked me up in its mouth and carried me to its den. It set me down there. Unharmed, no injury had touched me, not even a single limb was lost. Once again, as I lay prostrate before it, the serpent opened its mouth and asked, "Who has brought you, servant, to this island in the sea, surrounded by waves on all sides?" With my hands lowered humbly before him, I answered, "I was traveling to the mines on a mission from my king." Aboard a ship 150 cubits long and 40 cubits wide, it held 500 of Egypt's finest sailormen, had seen the sky, who had seen the earth, and whose courage was greater than that of lions. They believed no winds would rise, no disaster would strike. Each man was braver and stronger than the next. There was no fear among them, but while we were still at sea, the wind came. The storm grew fierce before we ever reached land. One wave rose 8 cubits high. I seized a plank. The ship was destroyed, and not a single soul survived. For me alone, a wave cast me upon this island, and that is how I came to be here before you. He said to me, "Do not be afraid, do not fear. Servant, do not be downcast. If you have come to me, it is because the gods have allowed you to survive and guided you to this isle of the Double-N Island, where nothing is lacking and where all good things are found. You will remain here month after month until 4 months have passed. Then a ship will arrive from your homeland, crewed by sailors, you know. You will leave with them and return to your land, where you will die in your own city. Once sorrow has passed, there is joy in recounting what one has endured. Let me describe exactly what is on this island. I live here among my brothers and children. Altogether we are 75 serpents my kin, and I not, counting a young woman who was brought to me through magical means. When a star fell from the sky, those who were with her in the fire perished, but she survived. I was not with them during the blaze. Had I been, I would have died as well. Later I found her alone, among the bodies. If you are brave, and your heart remains strong, you will one day hold your children again, embrace your wife, see your home, and, most precious of all, return to your people." Then I lay prostrate before him and said, "I will speak of your spirit to the king. I will proclaim your greatness. I will offer you perfumes and fragrant oils, ointments and cassia, incense from the temple's gifts that win the favor of all gods. I will tell the story of what happened to me and what I have seen of your power. In your city, before all the judges of the land, you will be honored. I will slaughter bulls and burn them in your name. I will offer birds, and I will send ships, filled with all the treasures of Egypt, just as one would for a god, a divine friend of humanity dwelling in a distant land unknown to men." He laughed at me for what I said, and with something in his heart he replied, "Do you not see before you an abundance of myrrh? Everything here is incense. I am the king of the land of Punt, and myrrh is mine. The perfume you speak of sending me, there is none of that here. It is true. But know this, once you leave this place, you will never see this island again. It will vanish and become nothing but waves." And behold, the ship arrived just as he had foretold. I climbed up into a tall tree and recognized the men aboard. I rushed to tell him the news, and he said to me, "Good fortune to you, servant. May you return home safely, see your children again, and may your name be honored in your city. These are my wishes for you." I bowed before him, lying flat with my hands at my sides, and he gave me gossamer fragrant oils, ointments, cassia, pepper, cosmetics, antimony powder, cypress, a large amount of incense, hippopotamus tails, elephant tusks, greyhounds, baboons, giraffes, and all kinds of fine treasures. I loaded everything onto the ship. Then once more I lay before him and gave him my worship. He said to me, "In 2 months' time you will reach your homeland. You will hold your children again, and one day you will rest in your tomb, having renewed your youth." So I went down to the shore where the ship was waiting. I called out to the sailors, and on the shore I gave thanks to the lord of the island. The sailors did the same. We set sail northward and returned to the court of the king, just as the serpent had predicted. We arrived at the palace in the 2nd month. I stood before the sovereign and presented the gifts I had brought from the island. He received me warmly before all the nobles of the land. He appointed me as his servant, and I was given fine slaves as a reward. Now, look at I have returned to Egypt after having endured and survived those trials. Listen to my story, for it is wise to listen and learn from what others have faced. Then the prince said to me, "Don't be spiteful, my friend, who gives water to a goose on the morning it's to be slaughtered." This is the end of the tale, complete from beginning to finish, just as it was found in writing. It was recorded by the skilled scribe Ammonia Mano. The story survives only in fragments, preserved on the first 3 existing pages of the Harris Papyrus No. 500, where it appears just before the story of the doomed prince. It was discovered in 1874 by Goodwin, who believed it to be part of a historical account. He first presented his findings at a meeting of the Society of Biblical Archaeology in March of that year. Under the title translation of a fragment of a historical narrative relating to the reign of Thutîi III, later, the story was published, with both a hieroglyphic transcription and a translation by Pharaoh, under the title How Thutîyi Took the City of Joppa, in the journal Asiatique. This version did not include the hieratic plates. A complete version with the plates appeared in Etudes Egyptiennes the following year. English and German translations were also made, respectively, by Flinders Petrie in Egyptian Tales, Volume 2, and by a Weedman in Ancient Egyptian Stories and Fairy Tales, published in Leipzig in 1906. The beginning of the story has been lost. When the surviving portion begins, 3 characters appear: the Egyptian officer Thutîyi, the prince of a Syrian city, and the prince's attendant. Goodwin read the name of the region where the action takes place as Imu and connected it with the biblical Imam. However, the true name is Jappu, which corresponds to the Greek Joppa. This reading has been debated, especially given the gaps in the papyrus and the cursive script, but the identification is now considered reliable. Birch, while not dismissing the story's authenticity, suggested it might be only a piece of a larger tale. He speculated that Thutîyi strategized from the part involving the jars, which resembles the story of Ali Baba in the Arabian Nights, a variation of a trick attributed in Persian. Legend to Zopyrus. In reconstructing the missing beginning, I have stayed within the bounds of language and phrases found in other known texts or inscriptions from Egypt's classical period. I do not claim to have fully restored the lost portion, but rather to have outlined a plausible introduction. This version aims to help readers unfamiliar with Egyptology to follow and understand the surviving fragment more easily. Once, in the land of Egypt, there lived a general of the infantry named Thutîyi. He accompanied King Manic-Priya on all his campaigns to both the southern and northern lands. He led his troops in battle, mastered every military stratagem, and was daily rewarded with gold for his valor. He was an exceptional commander, unmatched across the entire land. This is his story. One day, long after those campaigns, a messenger arrived from the land of Karu. He was brought before his majesty, and the king asked him, "Who sent you to me? Why have you come?" The messenger answered, "It is the governor of the northern lands who sent me. He says that the rebel in Joppa has risen against your majesty. He has slaughtered your foot soldiers and your charioteers. No one can oppose him." When King Manic-Priya heard the messenger's words, he flew into a rage like a southern leopard. He swore, "By my life, by the grace of Ra, and by the love my father Ammon bears for my will crush the city of that rebel in Joppa. He shall feel the weight of my wrath." The king summoned his nobles, his war captains, and his scribes, who practiced magic. He repeated to them the message from the northern governor. But they were all silent, as if with one voice. None could offer advice neither good nor bad. Then Thutîyi stepped forward and said to the king, "O sovereign, honored, by all the land, command that I be given the royal staff of King Menakbarea, which bears the name Tiat-Nofret. Also grant me foot soldiers and charioteers, the bravest warriors Egypt has to offer, and I will slay the rebel of Joppa and capture his city." His Majesty replied, "Excellent, excellent are your words." And so the royal staff was given to Thutîyi, along with the soldiers and charioteers he had requested. Some time later, Thutîyi was stationed in the land of Karu with his troops. He ordered the making of a large sack crafted from skin, big enough to hold a man. He also had iron shackles forged for wrists and ankles, a massive set of four-ring restraints, numerous wooden collars, and 500 large jars prepared. Once everything was ready, he sent a message to the rebel leader of Joppa. "I am Thutîyi, general of the infantry in Egypt. I have accompanied the king on all his campaigns across the north and south. But now King Menakbarea, envious of my strength and reputation, sought to have me killed. I escaped, bringing with me the king's great staff, which I've hidden among the fodder baskets for my horses. If you will accept me, I shall give you this staff and join your side myself and the elite warriors who follow me from Egypt's finest ranks." Upon hearing these words, the rebel of Joppa was overjoyed. He knew well of Thutîyi's unmatched bravery. He replied, "Come to me, and I shall treat you as my own brother. I will grant you a portion of land, one of the finest in all of Joppa." So the rebel came out from his city, accompanied by his attendant, the women and children of the town. He approached Thutîyi, greeted him warmly, took him by the hand, embraced him, and led him into his camp. However, he did not allow Thutîyi's companions or their horses to follow. He offered Thutîyi bread and drink, and as they conversed, he asked curiously, "This great staff of King Menakbarea, what is it like?" Now, before entering the city's camp, Thutîyi had cleverly concealed the staff in the horse fodder baskets, arranging them just as provisions are normally prepared for Egypt's chariot forces. While the rebel and Thutîyi drank together, the rest of his men mingled with Pharaoh's soldiers, sharing drink and leisure. Once the drinking had gone on for some time, Thutîyi said to the rebel leader, "If it pleases you, while I remain here with your women and children, let my men bring in their horses to feed them, or at least send a servant to them where they wait." Permission was granted. The horses were led in, tethered, and given fodder, and among the supplies, the great staff of King Menakbarea was discovered. Word was quickly sent to Thutîyi to inform him. Afterward, the defeated ruler of Joppa said to Thutîyi, "I long to see the great staff of King Menakbarea, that noble staff known as Tiat-Nofret, by the king's own double. Since you have it with you today, bring that excellent staff to me." Thutîyi obeyed. He brought forth the staff of King Menakbarea, grabbed the defeated man by his clothing, and threw him to the ground. He declared, "Look upon it, O defeated one of Joppa, behold, the great staff of King Menakbarea, the mighty lion, son of Sakhet, to whom Ammon his father grants strength and might." Lifting his hand, Thutîyi struck him on the side of the head, knocking him unconscious. He placed him inside the large sack made from skins. Then he seized the man's followers and had them bound. He used the iron shackles he had prepared to fasten the hands and feet of the rebel, placing the four-ringed restraints on his ankles. Next, Thutîyi brought forth the 500 jars he had ordered crafted. Into 200 of them he hid soldiers. The remaining 300 he filled with ropes, wooden collars, and fetters. Each jar was sealed, covered, and bound with the necessary cords for transport. Each was assigned to a strong soldier, 500 men in total. They were given their orders. Once inside the city, open the jars holding your comrades. Take control of the town and bind its people at once. ***, a messenger was sent to the equerry of the defeated ruler. With this message, your master has fallen. Go tell your mistress, rejoice. Sudoku has delivered Thutîyi into our hands. along with his wife and children. Behold, 200 jars disguised as spoils are filled with soldiers, and the rest carry fetters and wooden collars. The equerry, eager to please his mistress, led the disguised soldiers into the city, proclaiming, "We have captured Thutîyi." The city gates were opened to let them pass. Once inside, they opened the jars and released the hidden soldiers. They swiftly seized the entire city, from the highest to the lowest, placing collars and shackles on every inhabitant. Once Pharaoh's army had taken full control of Joppa, Thutîyi rested. He then sent a message to King Menakperea in Egypt, saying, "Rejoice! Amen, your divine father, has delivered the rebel of Joppa his people, and the city itself into your hands. Send men to take them away in chains, so that you may fill the house of your father, Amun-Ra, king of the gods, with slaves and maidservants who will serve beneath your feet for all eternity." Thus ends this tale, recorded by the hand of a scribe skilled in the art of storytelling.